Alright guys, it's time for Cooking with Sam. I'm not just a super good cook, but one thing I am pretty good at that I'm going to share with you is how to make boxed macaroni to go from, pretty good to like really, really good. Alright, so this is, I've already put the noodles onto, I've already put the water on to boil, but this is a box of macaroni. If you've never made this before, and especially if you're like a child, a young person, make sure you ask your parents to use the stove and stuff like that. But yeah, box of macaroni normally only takes like 4 ingredients. In the box, there's noodles and there's a little packet of cheese. This is super cheap. It was only 33 cents or 34 cents, something like that. And you also need milk and butter. So, step number 1, like this is kind of advanced, but step number 1, you get your water going, and you start the water to boil. If you add a little bit of olive oil, then that makes the noodles a little bit slippery, so they're not going to stick even whenever you dump them out or if you let them sit for a while. They won't get sticky and they won't stick together. Also add a little bit of salt. Just kind of start with the flavor, and I don't know, it does something to help with the boiling. I don't know, ask an Italian, they know this stuff. And then, once you kind of get that started, then you can start with the sauce. A lot of times people just kind of throw the cheese and the milk and the butter in there with it, but with the noodles, but I like to do them separate. I think it tastes better if you do them separately. So, you have a second pot, and you melt your butter, you add your milk, and then you do your cheese sauce, okay? Alright, so this is the first time I've ever done any video editing, so we're just going to have to see how it goes, alright? So, I like to separate, like a lot of people make it, I think it actually says on the box, that you boil the noodles and then you just add the stuff in there. I like to do it separately. Right now I'm at the point where my water has started boiling. I think you can see the steam, but steam can be dangerous, so if you've never done any kind of cooking before, even the steam can get kind of hot if you get too much of it too fast. It can actually burn you just steam. But my water is boiling, so it's boiling well. So I'm going to take my noodles, and I'm just going to dump them in there. Be careful about splashing. You don't like stay far away and like throw them in. You can get close, but don't burn yourself with the steam. You just dump in your noodles, and then they're going to kind of all clump at the bottom, so you take a spoon and you kind of move it around a little bit. You don't have to stir a whole lot because it's going to start moving on its own, but just keep an eye so that all of your noodles don't end up like stuck at the bottom of your pot. And then the lid on, this is pretty hot. It's on high because when you're boiling water, normally you put it up pretty high. But yeah, so I'm going to do that. And it's possibility, again, if you never cook, that it's going to boil up and overflow, so I put the lid on a little bit crooked so the steam can get out so it doesn't kind of start to bubble up too much and make a mess on the counter. Alright, so now in my smaller pot I'm going to make the sauce. So I start heating it up, and this is a much lower temperature because we're doing milk. We're going to cook some milk, sort of. It's going to be a lot lower temperature. And I like real butter. This is for real butter versus margarine. Tastes a little better, I think, and it also is less likely to give you cancer. That was kind of a joke, but also kind of true. But I think it says 1/4 a cup of butter and 1/4 a cup of milk. I'm not really a measurer, but if you've never done it before with a stick, you just cut it with a butter knife or a sharp knife, and it's pretty easy. And a little bit of milk. Easy peasy. And then once that gets going and the butter gets melted, I'm going to add the cheese sauce, which is the little packet that's found in the macaroni, the powder, which is right here. But that's going to take a little bit. This is also a good time to add spices. I'm a big fan of kind of Italian, just like these, like just Italian seasoning. I just like that. It's pretty good. If your parents have like fresh basil, this is a good time to add a little fresh basil in there too, into the sauce. Garlic salt is awesome. Also just straight up salt and pepper. If you like spicy, this is whenever you add your red pepper flakes. You can even add stuff like sriracha or hot sauce to the sauce if you want to. But yeah, it's pretty good. All right, so my butter is melted. So I'm gonna add my cheese sauce into that, dump that in there, and mix. Remember, my heat's pretty low. Also, I'm gonna add my Italian seasoning. I didn't have it used yet. Uh-oh. Can't get the lid on. Ugh, how embarrassing. There's not a little thing. Okay, I got it. Alright, so you can add a lot of your seasonings into the sauce right now. And it's okay to be pretty generous. Like, it's hard to go wrong. Like, you're going to have, it's okay to, put in quite a bit. Salt, you want to be careful. But those regular ones don't get too hot. And so this is something that I'm going to show you now that's a little bit different. Something that I like to add. Also, I've had to turn down my boiling noodles because they're getting a little too hot. And also, you want to make sure you stir them every once in a while to make sure the noodles aren't sticking to the bottom. But I really like to take a little bit of tomato sauce, not out of a can really, because that's not as good, but some kind of like flavored tomato sauce, and put like a little bit, like maybe half of the jar or even less, into the sauce now. My favorite are the ones that say like meat flavored or like meat sauce, and kind of keep it cooking low temperature with the cheese and everything in there. And also, I'm at the most dangerous part of the cooking, which is draining the noodles. I don't have a colander here, so I have to do it with the lid. If you have a colander, it's a lot easier. And this is also the part where it can burn you with steam whenever you dump the water into the sink. So be careful. Adult supervision and all that. I don't know if we'll be able to see me. But yeah. Want to be pretty careful. But if you've never done this before, you go just a little bit at a time so the steam can kind of and get out of the way. If you do it all at once, you can get burned. I don't want to lose any of my noodles. I don't want my sauce to get overcooked while I'm making this video. To burn. Oh, I think I lost a noodle. Alright. So if you have a colander, it's a lot easier. Some people like to rinse their noodles and cool them off. I don't like to do that as much because I want them to be hot for this next part. Alright, so I've turned everything down. Everything's down really low, both the sauce and then where the water was boiling. This next part is pretty nifty and can really make our stuff taste better, and it's pretty easy and pretty wise. What we're doing is we're just adding more butter. So I've got my pot that I just drained that's just full of noodles right now. And I can take a little bit of butter and I can just toss it in there right now. That's pretty good. And stick it back on the heat and keep stirring it around. And also, this is another place that you can add your spices. I'm not going to add more Italian spice. I'm just going to add salt and pepper. A lot of pepper, because I like it to be a little spicy. And this is the spiciest thing I have. So quite a bit of pepper. A little bit of salt. And then kind of let the butter kind of just deep fry your noodles just a little bit. That's pretty good. It's still pretty good even if you don't do this, and you can always add the red sauce. I always do that if I have it, because no matter where you add the red sauce, it's still pretty good. It just makes it to the next level. All right, yeah, my sauce is definitely done and good to go. Yeah. So you want to keep stirring this. I'm actually going to turn that one off. All right. So we kind of cooked our butter. You can do it longer if you want to, till it gets a little sizzly. Now I'm going to add my sauce into my noodles. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. A lot of Italian seasoning. Also, I forgot to mention, whenever you're kind of deep frying your noodles, it's a really good time to add some fresh garlic. If you've got a garlic press, one of those little garlic squishers, that's pretty tasty to add in there. All right, and then it's pretty easy. We just keep mixing our sauce and our noodles. And then something that's really easy to add that I do all the time is just to add some sprinkle cheese. I have cheddar, you can use whatever, but you just add a little bit, however much you want, and it really makes everything just taste better. So I'm gonna add just a smidgen. Just a smidgen of this because I'm going to add another kind of cheese, which really takes it to the next level. So it's still hot. If you need to put it back on low heat, you can do that too, to make sure everything gets melty, especially if you rinsed off your noodles. So a little bit of this, which is really good, and kind of get everything together. And then my favorite, the best macaroni and cheese that I've ever made for myself, I added some of these things. So you may not have seen these before. These are called mozzarella pearls. It's a type of fresh mozzarella. It's a little bit more expensive because it's kind of fancy. But I love to add, I'm not going to use this whole thing right now. I'm just going to add like half of them so I can make it again. But this is really good to add it. And you add it at this stage. You don't try to add it through the sauce. You could try, I guess. But mozzarella, it's hard to do with a sauce. And it's just going to be kind of melty and delicious. So I'm going to add about half of those fresh mozzarella pearls and mix those in there. And it's going to get really stringy and really messy, which I'm okay with. It's not like a super attractive dish. I don't really serve it to other people. I just eat it myself. But yeah, it's going to get really stringy and just like mozzarella does. And it's going to be super delicious. Awesome. This is our completed masterpiece. I haven't taken the first bite yet. No, I did. You see how cheesy and stringy it is? This is what the mozzarella does. If you only use cheddar, it's not nearly this stringy. But it is delicious. It is so good. I did have to put the mozzarella back on heat a little bit to get it warmed up because it takes a lot to get the mozzarella kind of melty, a lot of heat. So remember that. Yeah, enjoy your macaroni. Other tips, if you have a little can of Rotel tomatoes, you can throw that in there. That's kind of a more Mexican style, but that's really easy to add. Also, leftover taco meat with the Rotel is pretty good. There's lots of ways to make it good. Experiment. Tell me what you do to make your box macaroni and cheese taste even better. And yeah, hope you like this video, and I hope you love your macaroni and cheese.